my day started at 5, and so it's not bad. Only 7 o'clock now. A few more things left to do today. Um, how's your day?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good. Good, good, good. So I see Winnie on there. There's Erica. There's Paul, and then we had Dr. Deacon there. We got all sorts of people coming on right now. That's good. You know, it's on time twice in my lifetime. The day I got married, and there has to be a second time. I just can't remember when that was. And we'll get started here. So how you doing there, Paul? Everybody good? So why don't we just? So I think we have that first slide of my kitchen. Hi there, Winnie. And I think that's our the yeah, we got. So let's go back to the first slide there. So I'm sorry. Okay, so this is my my desk as it looked like this morning. There, we'll just get that get off that picture there. So there's like a couple things on this desk here, and they all have some symbolism to it. So what I have there, I start my day off with a cup of coffee, have an apple to keep the doctor away, and then my wife made some couscous and all sorts of things to take to work for breakfast. There's another glass there. There's a mouse. There's an N95 mask. There's a toothbrush there, and there's even some dental floss there. So, and there's also a surgical mask. And so I want you to think about, why did I put this on my desk today? And what does all that mean? So as the day goes, we'll spend a little bit of time trying to understand that. So why don't you just go back one slide there, Paul, just to show what the subject is today. And living better and longer.
Why did you touch my hand?
And so to me is that we are in difficult times, but we're also in exciting times. Lots to learn, lots to do differently. I feel very blessed by so many people around me to make things better, and we have some young people that are going to just talk the world away. So let's go to the next slide there. And we're having people join, and we'll record those for people who cannot go forward there. So I want everybody to think about why this is on my desk. Now, I have the cleanest desk of everybody. This is how I start my day most days. And I think we'll just get sort of started with the presentation. I'm going to let Paul say a few words first, and we're blessed to have Erica and Winnie say a few things as well. Go ahead there, Paul.
Paul, I think you're muted.
Actually, Paul's very muted, actually, but we'll get his voice on here first. Can you hear us, Paul?
We can't hear you.
Well, yeah, and we'll just hold on there for a quick second here. We'll get some fixing of that there. And today is that not a bad day. The clinic wasn't so bad today. Did people have a good healthy day? Paul, are you working there? We'll just see if Paul can join in there.
Hello. Okay.
There you are. There we got Paul. So
Can you hear me?
Paul is our technique guy, and he's good at technology. Like myself, technology is something that we're learning, and one of the things that we're going to spend some time learning is how to use technology better. We have some workshops on that as well. So go ahead, Paul.
Right. So I'm hoping you can hear me now.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we can.
Erica, your screen doesn't seem to be sharing too well. There it is. Right. So I just have a little bit of an introduction before I pass it on to Erica and Winnie for the day. And as you saw, the topic of today is, how to live longer and how to live healthier as well. And living healthy isn't the easiest thing to do, and living a healthy lifestyle isn't the easiest thing to do. We know it can be hard, and we hear so many things about what we should be doing. We hear we should be eating healthy. We hear we should be getting exercise and should be keeping social and keeping our brains busy. And you hear a lot of talk about, we're home in this quarantine time and we should be productive. And all of this is a whole bunch of, pressures going on to really be healthy during this time. And there's just so much to do that it's easy
Sit
to
here.
get lost. So Fair could go to the next slide. And I have a picture here. How many of you have seen this before? I'm sure it looks familiar, but it's way, way, way back. And if Erica just hits the next button one more time, you can see what the food guide looks like nowadays. And you can see, it looks absolutely nothing like they're telling us way back when. Back then they said you should be eating your meat and alternatives, you should be eating your grains and your carbs and your vegetables in certain numbers of each of these. Compared to now, where they just
Sit there.
a whole bunch of vegetables,
I have to get in there.
a little bit of grains,
It'll
and
take me
a little bit of
to.
extra proteins, and call it a day. Um, so that just goes to show, the science of this is always changing. It's really easy to get lost in all of this. I'm not actually going to spend too much time talking about diet because we could go on and on and on forever talking about diet. Main takeaway is just focus on the right for now. Eat a lot of vegetables. Eat a lot of healthy plant-based proteins like beans, and choose your whole grains. So that's not too much of what I'm going to be talking about today. You can go to the next slide. And we hear a lot about exercise too, and that's not also going to be the focus of today. I do want to also just get in there, if I was to summarize it really quick, 150 minutes of moderate to intense exercise per week goes a long way.
So,
That could be 30 minutes a day.
so to me, is that one of the things is that how do we find activity as being safe? So I remember the first day when I was in quarantine, I just sat in my house and I did 2 to 3 thousand steps a day. And then my wife kicked me out and saying, "Go for a bike ride." And you can bike ride safely if you're out in the country. You can do different things. And then so I've been doing when I'm at home between 20 to 50 kilometers, and my mental well-being is better. My physical well-being is better. So you have to decide: can you exercise safely? Um, and I think many of us can, and it's really good for my mental health as my physical health. So the best benefits we talked about before is going from nothing to something's important. So think about how you can add activity to that, and I think those are some examples there. Take it
Right.
away,
And
Paul.
so a lot of these examples here aren't really friendly considering the whole situation right now where we're stuck inside. So you're going to hear us referring back to some of our previous videos quite often. But in one of the previous webinars we had some examples of couch exercises that you could do. On just a couch, or figure out what you have in your house and figure out some ways to keep healthy with that. One thing that I do like that Dr. Curnew didn't mention though was, the mental health aspect of this too, and a lot of this can be very, very difficult in terms of mental health. And so that leads us to the next topic on just the next slide here. I have a small little quiz for you all. What's the number one predictor of physical health? Is that your LDL cholesterol levels, how far you can run, your money, how much money you have, or your satisfaction in relationships? So you can either say it out loud, you can leave a message in the chat, and we'll see what a lot of people are thinking.
So, Paul, I just got a question for you. I someone just text me in when I go to someone's trying to get on the webinar and they're saying, "Where in the webinar starting? I'm on the website, but it doesn't let me log in." So, someone just went to drcurnew.com, or how can they get into this webinar?
Right. It should be so when they open the link, there should be something that automatically downloads, and they have to click on what automatically downloads and open that.
Okay. And they can also go to YouTube.
Yeah, and they can also just go to YouTube and type in Dr. Curnew and go to your videos, and they should see a live video there as well.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, so we have some answers as D, and that's maybe some of us are cheating. I would have said money or LDL cholesterol or something, but all of these I'm sure you can imagine are very, very important when it comes to your health. Your LDL, we know that's very much associated and correlated with heart disease. How far you can run is quite a good symbol of your general conditioning and how well you can breathe. Your money, we all know that money plays a huge role in some aspect of health, whether it's affording your medications or a healthy lifestyle and all of that. There is some sort of interplay. Um, but it's very interesting that that an answer that we're hearing a lot is satisfaction in relationships, and that's actually true. So if you move on to the next slide, something that I do want to focus on for today is called this Harvard study of adult development. So there's this one study done by Harvard, and I'm going to show a little video that says it a lot better than I do. Um, it's perhaps the longest running study in all of history, and it's been running for 80 years now. Currently on the fourth director, so it's been passed. Like the person leading it has passed down 4 times already. Um, but yeah, so they've looked at everything they could about a certain group of men. So they have men from Harvard themselves, and they also took one of the poorest neighborhoods in Boston too, and examined these men for up to 80 years too. And they did find that surprisingly, at age 50 and beyond, it's the satisfaction with their relationships that is the number one predictor of their physical health. And there are a whole bunch of things involved, but at the end of the day, being social and making sure that you're making strong relationships, whether it's friendships or a spouse or, your loved ones, anyone else, that's number one factor that comes to determining your health. And so we can play this short little video. We're not going to play it all because it's quite long. So I guess we'll play the first 3 minutes and then from 5 to 10 minutes.
I really enjoy all these YouTube videos. I love the TED Talks and things of that nature as well. And this is remarkable. So I would have thought that things like your smoking, cholesterol, or things, but have a listen.
Erica, you might need to remove any headphones if you have those in.
The audio working?
What keeps us
Yeah.
and happy as we go through life? If you were going to invest now, future best self, where would you put your time and your energy? There was a recent survey of millennials asking them what their most important life goals were, and over 80% said that a major life goal for them was to get rich.
Erica, if we can shut the volume a little bit or pop the volume, if that's possible.
Yeah. If Erica, if you could just turn up your volume as well.
Another major life goal was to become famous. And we're constantly told to lean into work, to push harder and achieve more. We're given the impression that these are the things that we need to go after in order to have a good life. Pictures of entire lives, of the choices that people make and how those choices work out for them, those pictures are almost impossible to get. Most of what we know about human life, we know from asking people to remember the past. And as we know, hindsight is anything but 20/20. We forget vast amounts of what happens to us in life, and sometimes memory is downright creative. But what if we could watch entire lives as they unfold through time? What if we could study people from the time that they were teenagers all the way into old age to see what really keeps people happy and healthy? We did that. The Harvard study of adult development may be the longest study of adult life that's ever been done. For 75 years, we've tracked the lives of 724 men. Year after year, asking about their work, their home lives, their health, and of course, asking all along the way without knowing how their life stories were going to turn out. Studies like this are exceedingly rare. Almost all projects of this kind fall apart within a decade because too many people drop out of the study, or funding for the research dries up, or the researchers get distracted, or they die, and nobody moves the ball further down the field. But through a combination of luck and the persistence of several generations of researchers, this study has survived. About 60 of our original 724 men are still alive, still participating in the study, most of them in their 90s. And we are now beginning to study the more than 2,000 children of these men. And
you can just skip to 520 as well.
So what you're saying is that the largest study ever done, or the longest study ever done,
And here's where it gets interesting.
to get the clearest picture of these lives, we don't just send them questionnaires. We interview them in their living rooms. We get their medical records from their doctors. We draw their blood. We scan their brains. We talk to their children. We videotape them talking with their wives about their deepest concerns. And when about a decade ago, we finally asked the wives if they would join us as members of the study, many of the women said, it's about time. So what have we learned? What are the lessons that come from the tens of thousands of pages of information that we've generated on these lives? Well, the lessons aren't about wealth or fame or working harder and harder. The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. We've learned 3 big lessons about relationships. The first is that social connections are really good for us, and that loneliness kills. It turns out that people who are more socially connected to family, to friends, to community are happier, they're physically healthier, and they live longer than people who are less well connected. And the experience of loneliness turns out to be toxic. People who are more isolated than they want to be from others find that they are less happy, their health declines earlier in midlife, their brain functioning declines sooner, and they live shorter lives than people who are not lonely. And the sad fact is that at any given time, more than 1 in 5 Americans will report that they're lonely. And we know that you can be lonely in a crowd and you can be lonely in a marriage. So the second big lesson that we learned is that it's not just the number of friends you have, and it's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship, but it's the quality of your close relationships that matters. It turns out that living in the midst of conflict is really bad for our health. High conflict marriages, for example, without much affection, turn out to be very bad for our health, perhaps worse than getting divorced. And living in the midst of good, warm relationships is protective. Once we had followed our men all the way into their 80s, we wanted to look back at them at midlife and to see if we could predict who was going to grow into a happy, healthy octogenarian and who wasn't. And when we gathered together everything we knew about them at age 50, it wasn't their middle-aged cholesterol levels that predicted how they were going to grow old. It was how satisfied they were in their relationships. The people who were the most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. And good, close relationships seem to buffer us from some of the slings and arrows of getting old. Our most happily partnered men and women reported in their 80s that on the days when they had more physical pain, their moods stayed just as happy. But the people who were in unhappy relationships, on the days when they reported more physical pain, it was magnified by more emotional pain. And the third big lesson that we learned about relationships and our health is that good relationships don't just protect our bodies, they protect our brains. It turns out that being in a really attached relationship to another person in your age.
Okay.
Truly amazing. So I do think everything's important, but certainly events such as this and just relationships good quality relationships are important. It's interesting. One of the patients I was talking to on the phone, I haven't spoken to her since October. And last time I talked to her, she's having chest pain, she's having palpitations, her arthritis was terrible. But in December, just before Christmas, she moved into a retirement home. And she says, I love it. I'm connected with so many people. I feel safe here. And
Close
her
that
arthritis
window
is.
and leave it alone, please.
So I'm going to ask people that to if they're on the webinar, just to mute yourselves unless you want to talk right now. So just take your voices off a little bit, and we'll open up for discussions too as well. But I think it's just really remarkable. And one of the things is that I feel that our practice of medicine is enriched because all these young people that are participating, and a lot of old people that have participated. You all made this place a wonderful place to practice medicine, and it's really great to serve you all. So I'm really looking forward to the next 30, 40 years of practice. And I think I'll retire when I turn 100, I think. Maybe not. Hope I make it that far. And so much to go. So I think we're going to go to the next phase right now. I'm not sure if you want to pause and have some questions right now. I was thinking maybe we should get like Erica and Winnie to talk a little bit first, and we'll have plenty of time for discussion afterwards. Do you think that's okay, Paul?
Yeah, that works with me. I just wanted to show this amazing video because it just goes to show, the importance of staying connected with one another, especially in a difficult time like this. Yeah, so with that being said, we can move on to the next phase. If anyone has any questions, you can type them in and we can answer them as we go. But in terms of discussion, we will open that up in a little bit as well.
And we'll have plenty of time for discussion.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Hello?
We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you, Erica.
Perfect. So I just want to talk a little bit more about some changes we can make to our behavior, and specifically something called the G.I. Joe fallacy. So you're probably familiar with the old cartoon, and the slogan is that now you know, and knowing is half the battle. But if we look at the facts, actually knowing is usually less than half the battle. It's not enough just to know, but it requires a lot more effort to actually follow through and accomplish our goals. So as humans, it's normal that we want that quick fix, but that isn't always possible. And so what we hope that we can help you out with is educating yourself to take those steps that actually help you practice what you've learned. And so you can also find a few other videos related to other topics like intermittent fasting, as well as congestive heart failure, which are also posted on our YouTube page. You can also catch up on the previous webinar that we hosted last Friday. But I want to go into now is habits and how forming these habits can help us accomplish lifestyle changes. So when I speak about habits, I'm talking just about the small decisions and everyday actions that we take. So according to researchers at Duke University, they found that actually habits account for 40% of our behaviors on any given day. And so if your life feels repetitive, it probably is. But with all the information that we get today, it's understandable that it would be a little bit overwhelming or confusing as to what the best approach would be when it comes to managing your healthcare. But what we want to show you is that there isn't always one correct answer. What's more important is that you find what works best for you. And so, although we know that we should exercise more, we should eat healthier, drink less, stop smoking, whatever the case, it's a lot harder to follow through, which is why we want to introduce this idea of habit formation and how repetitive habits can actually have a larger change in the long run. So, if you're familiar with chemistry, activation energy is the minimum amount of energy required to create a specific reaction. And so we can see that at point B, there's a peak in energy, but after that, there's a lot less energy that's required to carry out the rest of the reaction. So if we apply this to habits, we could see that starting a habit is probably the hardest part, but once you get over that, it's a lot easier to keep going. And as Isaac Newton says, objects in motion stay in motion. So whatever habit you're trying to pick up, there's a different energy that's required to activate or begin that habit. And the harder or the higher you set your goal, the harder it will be to start. So knowing this, we want to make sure that our habits are easy to start with so that we can actually consistently meet them, but gradually increase difficulty as we go. And so although although we may have been able to start, sometimes keeping it going will be harder. So how can we stay motivated when this is the case? Well, if we compare amateur athletes to professionals, professional athletes often make a schedule and stick to it, while amateur athletes will try to look for motivation somewhere else before they start. So what I would encourage you all to do in whatever habit you're trying to accomplish at home, try to keep track of it, and also try not to miss your schedule twice. And why I say this is because if you prevent small errors from snowballing out of control, that way you're less discouraged. And so, although this is the case, we also want to focus on consistency over perfection. So, making a schedule instead of a deadline, as well as building a new lifestyle that changes our identity. That way, we're more inclined to stick with it. And so if you have any questions along the way or need to add anything, feel free to jump in. But the idea then is that with our habits, changing our thoughts first and then our habits can essentially change our whole life. And yes, it is easier said than done. So we'll talk a little bit about why that is the case. And I have a little clip here as well that I'd like to show, which discusses why we behave in such irrational ways and how we can use this knowledge to prevent that.
The same behavioral reflexes that get us into trouble and turn them around to help us rather than to hurt us. We see irrationality play out in something called present bias, where the outcomes in front of us are much more motivating than even more important outcomes far in the future. I'm on a diet, and I'm always on a diet. And someone offers me a luscious looking piece of chocolate cake. I know I should not eat that chocolate cake. That chocolate cake will land on that part of my body permanently, where that kind of food naturally settles. But the chocolate cake looks so good and delicious, and it's right in front of me, and the diet can wait till tomorrow. I used to love the comedian Stephen Wright. He would have these Zen-like quips, and my favorite one was this: hard work pays off in the future, but laziness pays off right now. And patients also have present bias. If you have high blood pressure, even if you would desperately like to avoid a stroke, and you know that taking your antihypertensive medications is one of the best ways to reduce that risk, the stroke you avoid is far in the future, and taking medications is right now. Almost half of the patients who are prescribed high blood pressure pills stop taking them within a year. Think of how many lives we could save if we could solve just that one problem. We also tend to overestimate the value of small probabilities. This actually explains why state lotteries are so popular, even though they return pennies on the dollar. Now, some of you may buy lottery tickets. It's fun. There's the chance that you might strike it rich. But let's face it, this would be a horrible way to invest your retirement savings. I once saw a bumper sticker, I'm not making this up, that said, state lotteries are a special tax on people who can't do math. It's not that we can't do the math, it's that we can't feel the math. And we also pay much too much attention to regret. We all hate the feeling of missing out. Actually, there was this recent lottery that had a mega jackpot lottery that had a huge payoff, something like over $1 billion. And everyone in my office is pooling money to buy lottery tickets, and I'm not having any of this. There I am, like swaggering around the office. Lotteries are a special tax on people who can't do math. And then it hits me. Uh-oh. What if they win? I'm the only one who shows up at work the next day. Now, it's not that I didn't want my colleagues to win. I just didn't want them to win without me. Now, it would have been easier if I had just taken my $20 bill and put it into the office shredder, and the results would have been the same. Even though I knew I shouldn't participate, I handed over my $20 bill, and I never saw it again. We've done a bunch of experiments with patients in which we give them these electronic pill bottles so we can tell whether they're taking their medication or not. And we reward them with a lottery. They get prizes, but they only get prizes if they had taken their medication the day before. If not, they get a message that says something like, you would have won $100, but you didn't take your medicine yesterday, so you don't get it. Well, it turns out patients hate that. They hate the sense of missing out. And because they can anticipate that feeling of regret and they'd like to avoid it, they're much more likely to take their medications. Harnessing that sense of hating regret works. And it leads to the more general point, which is once you recognize how people are irrational, you're in a much better position to help them. Now, this kind of irrationality works out even in men's restrooms. So for those of you who don't frequent urinals, let me break this down for you. There is pee all over the floor. And it turns out that you can solve this problem by etching the image of a fly in the back of the urinal. And it makes perfect sense. If I see a fly, I'm going to get that fly. That fly is going down. Now, this naturally begs the question that if men can aim, why were they peeing on the floor in the first place? In fact, if they were going to pee on the floor, why pee in front of the urinal? You could pee anywhere. And the same thing.
Okay. So, okay. So I really like that video as it shows how we have this bias in looking at the outcomes in front of us as easier to attain and more important or motivating than the far more valuable outcomes that we can gain in the future. But yes, they require sacrifice. And so we want to try to establish habits that allow us to attain those long-term goals. And last webinar, we discussed that on average, we have about 60,000 thoughts per day, 80% of those being negative and 95% being repetitive. So it's no wonder that we're so inclined to think of the worst scenario and be a little bit pessimistic. But it's true that we can change our thoughts and our habits in order to make changes. So we should focus rather on what we could gain from these situations rather than what we could lose. And if we take smoking for an example, it's easy to make excuses, especially when it gets chaotic and busy. But I would argue that now is the best time to make these lifestyle changes, especially with all the change that's going around us. Now is the best time to restart. And Winnie will take it away from here and talk a little bit about what we can gain versus lose when it comes to smoking in particular. But this doesn't only apply to smoking. You can think of it in different contexts.
Yeah, absolutely. Can everyone hear me first of all?
Yep.
Awesomeness. All right, cool. So like Erica said, we're just going to use smoking as like kind of an example as to how you can start taking a look at the habits that you want to establish in your life, or some of the habits that you actually want to dismantle in your life, and going about that. But with regards to smoking specifically, it might be yourself, it might be some of the loved ones around you. I know for me personally, I'm thinking about my grandma 100% when I'm talking about all this. So if you can think of someone in your life who might benefit from knowing some of this knowledge, then by all means, please feel free to share this with them. So to start off, we will be discussing some of the myths associated with smoking. The first one that we have is that we may think that there's no harm in smoking only a couple of cigarettes a day. Erica, if you don't mind just switching to the next slide, thank you. So we know that smoking in general is harmful, but maybe some individuals think that smoking just, a smaller volume, like 1 or 2 a day, it's not going to hurt you. But in fact, when you start looking at like 3 to 5 cigarettes a day, it does in fact increase your risk of heart disease, cancer, respiratory diseases, fertility issues, and erectile dysfunction. So just because it's a lower volume still means you're experiencing a lot of those detrimental effects. One of the next myths that we'll be touching upon is that a lot of people think that they'll gain a lot of weight if they quit smoking, so they use smoking as a weight management technique almost. There's a little bit of truth in that. People do tend to gain about 5 to 10 pounds by quitting smoking, but it's 5 to 10 pounds, minuscule. And I think a lot of it is because while your metabolism might decrease a little bit after quitting smoking, there's also a tendency to replace one habit with another. So when you're quitting smoking, you might end up eating more and moving less and using that as a replacement for the joy that you experienced when smoking. And that then leads to weight gain. But think of it as how you could offset that essentially by just eating 200 calories or less each day and by exercising. So you gain a lot by quitting smoking, your health increases drastically. And if you gain a pound or 2 during that, then I think it's well worth it. It's worth it for those additional years in your life. And if you are uncomfortable with the weight gain, it is simple. We have resources available to help you lose that weight if you want. But it's just simply looking at the whole energy in, energy out thing and ensuring that you have less energy, aka food, coming in. Yep. Okay, next myth we're going to be touching upon is how light or mild cigarettes might actually be safer. The thing is, light or mild cigarettes contain less nicotine, but they have the same amount of harmful chemicals. So light and mild are essentially just buzzwords used by the tobacco companies to lure in consumers. Sometimes they advertise that there's less tar in them, but if you puff on these cigarettes for often longer to get the same amount of nicotine from them, you're intaking more of these harmful chemicals. So it could be essentially the same amount of damage, if not more damage, than your average normal cigarette. Okay, and the last myth that we'll be talking about is that smoking reduces your stress. The fact is that by smoking, you're essentially treating your nicotine withdrawal symptoms, so there's a slight reframing there. Ironically, smoking actually increases the stress responses in your body, so that increases your heart rate, your blood vessels constrict, your muscles tense up, and less oxygen reaches your brain. But a lot of people think that smoking reduces their stress instead. But just think about it. The act of smoking is essentially you're stepping out, taking a breather from whatever work you were doing or whatever thing you were doing before. You're taking a lot of deep breaths. And this process of stepping away, taking a break in your everyday life, and then taking deep breaths, that can definitely be associated with that decreased stress that you're experiencing. So there's a bit of a blurry line there. But just consider the fact that smoking may not be as helpful for your mental health as you might have previously thought. Next slide. So here is a timeline of your journey or your loved one's journey if they decide to carry out quitting smoking. So looking in terms of mere days, within days, you'll find that you are at decreased risk of coronary artery disease and a heart attack. After 3 days, however, because there's no more nicotine in your body, you'll start experiencing withdrawal symptoms. So we'll be touching upon that in the next slide, I believe. But already there's decreased risk of coronary artery disease and heart attack, which is fantastic. Within 2 weeks, those withdrawal symptoms that you were experiencing do start to decrease. And you'll notice that your heart function, your blood circulation improves. You'll find that it's easier to breathe as well as to exercise. And it's great because if you exercise as well, not only is it easier for you to exercise, but exercise also serves as a great distractor when you get cravings and such, and you can find it easier to do everyday tasks, including just walking your dog, going upstairs. So it doesn't mean you're going out to jog or anything. Doing everyday things can tend to be simpler. And if you look at months or years after you try to quit smoking, or in your smoking journey, I guess, quitting smoking journey, you'll find that your lungs repair, there's less coughing. After 9 months, withdrawal symptoms should be gone. So that's not going to be permanent. Occasionally, like maybe a year later or so, you might have it come back briefly, but if you ignore it, they stay away usually. And big whomper here, the risk of heart disease and cancers can halve. So 50% decrease in risk of heart disease and cancer. That is wild. In a matter of months and years, you can improve your health so drastically, and that's amazing. And we'd like to point out that it's really never too late or pointless to quit smoking, regardless of your age. There are a lot of benefits to quitting, even if you may be like, I don't know, 100, and you don't expect to like live another 10 years. There are a lot of benefits, even in the short run, for quitting smoking. So remember to keep this in your heart when you or your loved one is trying to quit, because it really does pay off in the end. Next slide. I'm gonna have to touch upon withdrawal symptoms. It's a necessary thing that we have to go through when quitting smoking. It's typically unavoidable because of decreased nicotine in your body. And nicotine is the main addictive substance in cigarettes. So the symptoms will decrease as the months pass, but some of the symptoms that individuals may experience include cravings for cigarettes, of course, irritability, anxiety, feeling a bit depressed potentially, difficulties with concentration, sleeping, headaches, and even coughing. But I want to point out that while coughing is a withdrawal symptom, it might be kind of confusing because you think that by quitting smoking, you'd be reducing coughing, right? Because smoke isn't damaging your lungs anymore. And a lot of patients notice that they start coughing after quitting, so they resume smoking in hopes of counteracting it, which is a big mistake, actually, because the coughing is actually a result of your airways starting to clear up more of the mucus from your lungs as your lungs start to become healthier, okay? So before getting alarmed about how you start coughing more and taking up smoking again, please discuss with potentially your doctor, because it's more likely to be a withdrawal symptom and an indicator that your lungs are actually starting to heal. Okay. Any questions so far, by the way? Feel free to just pop them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask them at any point. Cool. Okay, I think we can move on
Not a
to
question.
the next slide. Yes.
Yeah, not a question, but just a comment. I think this is a great example of not just smoking, but all habits in general. You know, it can be very difficult in the short term, and you could experience, withdrawal symptoms from nicotine, or you could experience some psychological withdrawal symptoms from even sugar addictions and such. But once you overcome the short term withdrawal, you're going to start to see a lot of the benefits in the future as well. So keep that in mind. But that a lot of this is applicable to a lot of bad habits that we have in general as well.
That's a great point you bring up. Absolutely. Like with eating food, with even addiction to like games or I don't know, other substances in our life, we all experience, or we should predict that there will be withdrawal symptoms. You'll probably get the munchies around midnight if you're trying to like cut down on the amount of food that you eat and that sort of thing. And predicting the challenges and then deciding strategies to counteract them is a large part in learning how to develop new habits and retire those old ones. So that's a really great point to bring up. If you move on to the next slide, just want to touch upon briefly a couple of strategies that individuals who are quitting smoking typically turn to. One of these is called nicotine replacement therapy, or NRT, as we'll refer to it from now on. So cigarettes contain thousands of chemicals in addition to nicotine, which is the chemical that gives you that high from smoking. And it is those additional chemicals that actually lead to a lot of the negative effects of smoking. NRT, on the other hand, does not lead to those negative effects, so increased risk of heart disease, stroke, that sort of thing. And instead, NRT allows nicotine to enter your body slowly so that it's less addicting, but you're able to reduce the withdrawal symptoms that you're experiencing. So that includes cravings, restlessness, negative mood, and headaches, perhaps. So some types of NRT, such as patches, will provide a slower, kind of steady amount of nicotine throughout the day for 24 hours. Other types of NRT include gums, sprays, and lozenges, and these tend to act quickly for a brief period of time. So they're pretty good if you're dealing with sudden, intense cravings, but just always remember to read the instructions on use, of course. And it's important to just kind of test out what kind of combinations work for you. Some individuals decide to quit without reaching out to NRT, others find it really helpful. So if you are experiencing some difficulty in your quit journey, it can be helpful to discuss with maybe your local pharmacist, see what kind of NRT works for you, and just try out different combinations. So an example, some people like to use like a baseline nicotine patch in the morning, and then if they end up having cravings later in the afternoon after lunch, because that's when they typically usually go for their smoke break, they then put a bit of eat a bit of chewing gum in order to counteract that. If you notice that your hands start to fill during work when you feel the need to go on a smoke break, perhaps grab a pen, play with it. And if you try to resist for maybe like 15 minutes and they don't go away, then maybe reach out for like an NRT nicotine inhaler. So the ultimate goal is to slowly decrease the amount of nicotine or NRT that you use as your withdrawal symptoms go away. If they come back in the future, because we all do run the risk of relapse, and that's completely normal, it's okay to use NRT to help to manage this. Next thing that we want to touch upon is the topic of electronic cigarettes.
I just make a point.
Yep.
Can you hear me there? So I think these are great points. So one of the things that I want people to think about is changing habits. So we learned from Erica initially that getting started is hard. Journaling is a good idea. And also, most people who try to quit cigarettes will have trouble and will fail. I hate the word fail, it's relapse. When the Toronto Raptors tried to win the championship, it took them a long time. And what I love about this is that we do have medications such as nicotine replacement therapy that doubles your success rate. The medications as well. So it's it's fantastic. We have opportunities, and right now is that we're all scared. If you're not scared, you're not human. And SARS, we got worried about that, and COVID-19 is a variant of SARS that is unfortunately doing a lot of harm. But we can do a lot. It likes the lungs. And basically is that you want to have the best lungs you possibly can. So what I'm urging anybody who has a friend who smokes is the best thing you can do is get them a box of the 21 milligram patches and just wear them. Wear them for a month, even if you smoke. And you'll find that most people will smoke less. Because remember, is every time you smoke, 5 minutes of life is gone. As Winnie points out very clearly, is you don't have to smoke a lot, but the more you smoke, the higher risk. And the moment you stop, you start to see benefits. So I love this approach that we can always do better, and we'll always be relapse. So take it away, Winnie.
Thank you for sharing all that. That was really inspiring. Yeah, okay. But we wanted to touch upon electronic cigarettes briefly because it's kind of becoming almost a trend lately, even with youngsters these days. Electronic cigarettes, or vaping, as some people like to call it, is becoming a bit bigger, but we want to emphasize the fact that e-cigarettes are different from nicotine inhalers. Nicotine inhalers are NRT, but e-cigarettes, they contain a battery and a heating element that vaporizes a liquid. And while this liquid does contain nicotine, it also contains a lot of other substances, which might be helping to produce a vapor that allows you to breathe in the nicotine more effectively into your lungs. But there's also a lot of companies that don't list the ingredients in those vapors. And so there's a lot of limited and inconclusive research about how these mystery chemicals affect your body if you inhale them. So you don't want to okay, it's kind of clear already that I kind of have a bias personally. So it is up to you. The choice that you make is fully yours. But we just want to emphasize the fact that with regards to e-cigarettes and vaping, research is for the most part inconclusive, and it is not regulated by Health Canada. So if you want to go ahead with e-cigarettes or vaping as your choice of sort of NRT, you're taking your health in your own hands. We just wanted to let you know that that's the current stance out there. Okay, next slide, if you please. All right. This is a bit more associated with actual habits that we tend to have. So when we're talking about cravings here, it is referring to nicotine cravings when quitting smoking, but you can also think of it in terms of your own personal habits, the kind of cravings that you tend to have when you start to try quitting a particular habit or something. I know that, say, okay, maybe I want to try exercising more. That's the habit that I want to implement. But I also have a craving to sit on the couch and just watch Netflix. So a lot of these strategies then apply to this own habit that I'm trying to implement in my life. So a note about cravings, people who tend to quit, who quit smoking specifically, they tend to experience like a background craving that'll decrease as the weeks pass. There can be intense cravings as well, which are brought upon by triggers. So things that make you want to smoke, or if you're thinking about other habits, things that make you want to do those things in particular. And it's good that you are able to identify them, because by identifying them, you can develop strategies to counteract them, and over time, they will probably disappear. So with cravings with smoking, they tend to decrease as time passes. And some strategies that are typical include NRT, as we just discussed, identifying and avoiding triggers, things like keeping a smoking journal, or in our cases, just a journal to document our journey in trying to reach that desired habit that we want, and also utilizing relaxation techniques. So that includes deep breathing, yoga, meditation, and I think Erica's going to touch upon that later, I believe, fingers crossed. But yeah, and next part we'll be discussing. So we mentioned the word trigger a lot. There are different types of triggers. There are emotional triggers. So with regards to smoking, you might smoke because you're feeling stressed or angry or bored or sad or lonely. Or maybe you're happy and you want to enhance that good mood. So something to counteract that particular trigger might be, you think it might be nice that you plan to talk it out with someone to let it all out, take some deep breaths, essentially finding a healthy outlet in order to replace the space that smoking previously had in your life. Another form of trigger is patterns. So these are things that you associate or do with smoking or whatever particular bad habit that you currently have. Maybe you tend to smoke after your morning coffee or during your work break or before you go to bed. So potential plans can involve breaking your routine perhaps. So if you tend to smoke after your morning coffee, it can help to maybe drink coffee from a thermos outside of work rather than at home, so you don't get that urge to walk out onto the porch and start smoking. Some other plans might be finding a good distraction, such as going for a walk, reading a book, or talking to others. And that builds upon that theme of how relationships are like the largest component in determining your happiness, right? So in your journey to quit smoking, or in the journey of your loved one, remember to continue establishing and maintaining those relationships, because those matter a lot more than we think they do, and they'll ultimately allow for greater success in the future. The last type of trigger is social trigger. So a lot of the time, people like to smoke when others are smoking. And ultimately, the biggest solution for that would be to explain how you are quitting smoking right now, and planning how to avoid these situations where you'll be in a social context and others will be smoking. And who knows, there's the potential that you'll be inspiring them to actually join you and also try to quit smoking.
Winnie, that's a great point. Because one of the things you point out is that I find a lot of times is that you make contact with a lot of friends, colleagues that smoke, and it's really hard to make that change when other people are doing something different than you are. So I think that's a really good one to touch on, to let the people around you know, this is important to me. I need your support and help. Take it from here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one of the strategies that uses that social context actually is to find someone who will quit with you. So a quit buddy, essentially.
Right.
Usually it's someone who is also working to quit smoking, could be another friend, another relative who you think would also benefit from it. But just having that pair, keeping each other accountable and going through all the motions together, that can make a large impact, and you develop your friendship as well, which is awesome. Yeah.
Just Paul, you're touching your face too much. So we know that what I'm trying to figure out too is that I forget how many hundreds of thousands of times we all scratch our face and touch ourselves. Is that the COVID virus loves the nose, and so keep your hands off your face, everybody.
Everyone, I'm touching my face too much. Keep in mind during this time of the year, avoid touching your face, especially when you're going outside. Wash your hands often. Keep some hand sanitizer with you if you have some.
And I just did it too.
I know it's the last
It's
webinar is
tricky.
touching my face too much, so I'm really conscious about that. And I'm really working hard about that.
Okay, just a nice quote here. This too shall pass. Oh man, it might pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass. First off, quitting smoking is not going to be like passing a kidney stone, I like to think. Like, it'll be tricky, but it's not going to be nearly as painful, I say, as someone with no experience in either of those contexts. But I guess the point is that even those things, negative things, all eventually pass. Good things and bad things pass. It's a matter of persistence and making sure that you still keep on your toes with regards to establishing a habit. So just one last thing that we want to touch upon with regards to quitting smoking. There are a lot of behavioral changes that you can integrate. And some of those include finding oral substitutes, and that includes using gum, eating sunflower seeds, or a toothpick, munching on other things. And I guess this is why like sometimes people gain weight when they try to quit smoking. But finding an oral substitute because you're kind of used to having something in your hand or something in your mouth. At least the next part, occupying your hands can help a lot. You're used to having a cigarette in your hand. It can help to find a stress ball, a pen, even a Rubik's Cube, that sort of thing. One of the biggest things that we want to emphasize is finding ways to make smoking uncomfortable for yourself. These can include routine changes, and some examples might include smoking with your non-dominant hand. It might include buying a different brand of cigarettes each time so you don't stick with like your preferred brand every time, and remembering not to smoke in the house because secondhand and third-hand smoke is a thing and it does impact other people who live with you. So these are just a couple of strategies that you can keep in mind with regards to quitting smoking.
So we're going to pause here for a sec. We can use this to any behavior. So number one is smoking. There's an addiction. And basically, Nicorette patches, gums will help. There's other medications called Zyban and Zampex. So we can help you with that. The behavior part is that we need you to help yourselves with that as well. So I'm asking everybody who smokes not to stop today. I'd love that to make that happen, but get Nicorette patches the next month. Try it. I know it's not covered. It's an important thing to think about, but that's the single most important thing you can do today to protect your lungs, to protect your life. That's just for today, and there's benefits long term as well. Number two is the behavior. So I want people to think about this. Is get a journal, write down. It is 7 or 8:03. I feel like a cigarette. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write my book. It's 8:03. I'm going to go have my cigarette after this webinar is over. I'm going to pause. I'm going to keep track of that. The next thing is always buy one pack of cigarettes at a time and buy a different package of cigarettes. If you smoke with your right hand, smoke with your left hand. Change the routine. You can't smoke in the house, you have to go outside. So we need to try that, change that behavior. So I'm not asking you to stop, but change that behavior. So I think it's really important. And if you want some help, we'll give you the help. And there's ways you can call the office, say, I need someone to talk about smoking cessation. We'll send you 500 buddies to help you stop smoking. Also, you can get us at drcurnew at 232gmail.com just for that one incident. So I want to make this a priority. Now, you can change that habit. One of the things is, my biggest thing is nighttime eating. And I'm struggling with that. I'm trying to change my habit when it comes to that. And I thank my wife when she goes shopping now is that she's not buying treats for anybody in the house. And if she does, she's hiding them on me. But I'm going to keep working on that. So, Winnie, that's fantastic. Anything else you want us to add to this?
No, that was about it. I think Erica's going to go into a bit about relapse, that sort of thing. So I'll hand it off to her.
I want to thank Winnie. That's fantastic. Well done.
Aw, shucks.
Being really instrumental in working with public health and other people to help with the smoking. So I want to thank you for that. And Winnie's always willing to help. If you need some help, she'll get in contact with you. And thank you, Winnie. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out. Yep.
Erica, what do you have to tell us next?
So just continuing on with what Dr. Curnew mentioned earlier about relapse, it's a normal part of quitting smoking, and most individuals actually take multiple attempts before they successfully quit. So don't be too hard on yourself. Some tips that you could try moving forward are to get rid of any cigarettes that you have. Remember the reasons why you quit in the first place, and also just keep setting another goal, a new quit date, whatever it is, and don't give up. So instead of expecting to fail, just plan for failure in case it happens. So what's more important is that you're consistent rather than perfect. And top performers, they, like everyone else, will get off track from time to time. So what's more important is that they get back on track as quickly as possible. And so even if you miss your habit once, no matter when that is, there's actually no measurable impact that it has on your long-term progress and success. So instead of falling into this mentality of all or nothing, where it doesn't matter because I've already quit or I've already failed, that just allows us to make further excuses. Instead, we should focus on making a little bit of progress, which is better than none at all. And so one other technique you could try is the if or then technique. And that's all you really have to do for that is complete the phrase, if this happens, then I will do this. So for example, if I don't wake up in time to run, then I'll run after work. Or if I can't make it to yoga during my lunch break, then I'll stretch during my afternoon break. So it's just finding alternatives that work for us. And
So one strategy, if I have this cigarette, I'm going to write down in my diary, I had this cigarette. I'm going to smoke my different hand. I'm going to get those Nicorette patches, or I'm going to try that other strategy. I'm going to call my next door neighbor. I'm going to call one of Dr. Curnew's team to help. Let's try. So to me, is move forwards, and that can apply to any behavior. What I'm going to do is I'll call you at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm snacking, everybody. So I hope you don't mind me waking up. You can talk me out of it. And we're gonna keep finding some ways to increase success. And yes, it's okay if we don't make it. We just get up and try again. Go ahead, there.
well, there are a lot of resources that can help you get back up on your feet, whether it's online, helplines. You can also reach out to the clinic, as Dr. Curnew mentioned, and we'll have a final slide that includes the clinic's email, so you can reach out to us there as well. And I'd like to show a clip from this video.
So this is
In
Elon
5
Musk.
years, we may look back and say Elon Musk was the single most influential person of our entire century. He has been and in the description. First off, one thing that we just have to acknowledge is how gifted and hardworking Elon is. He was writing computer programs as a child, and his work ethic has only improved since then. This next sentence is coming from a man with 5 children running 3 companies.
I'm available 24/7 to help solve issues. Call me 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I don't care.
But even all that brain power and hard work isn't enough to avoid failure. In fact, the higher that you set your sights, the more likely you are to fail repeatedly along the way, which means an absolutely critical component of high achievement is dogged perseverance in the face of failure. And without a doubt, Elon Musk has failed more spectacularly and at higher cost than anyone who will watch this video. Take SpaceX. The first 3 rockets at SpaceX didn't work as they had planned. He burned through $100 million of his own money and was still going bankrupt. Or Tesla. When they IPO'd in 2010, Jim Cramer said this.
You don't want to own this stock. You don't want to lease it. Heck, you shouldn't even rent the darn thing. I think Tesla will have the same trajectory as A123, which we told you would have a great first day pop when it came public, but then would be a dud afterwards.
In 2012, nearly 10 years after Tesla was founded, Mitt Romney, who was running for president, told the nation that Tesla was a loser.
But don't forget, you put $90 billion, like 50 years worth of breaks into solar and wind, to Solyndra and Fisker and Tesla and Enter1. I mean, I had a friend who said you don't just pick the winners and losers, you pick the losers.
Have you ever spent 5 years of 100-hour weeks and all of your money on something and then still had it not work? Have you spent 10 years on a project and then still been publicly ridiculed as a dud? And have you persevered in spite of all of that? Most of us have not and would not. So where does Elon's perseverance come from? Well, it's because business failure would not bother him nearly as much as a failure to do something challenging, worthwhile, and exciting.
And there need to be reasons to get up in the morning. You know, life can't just be about solving problems. Otherwise, what's the point? There's got to be things that people find inspiring and make life worth living.
When Elon's talking about problems here, he means the daily things that occupy most of us, like getting by at work, earning more money, making sure that other people approve of our decisions. Ask yourself, what has guided your decisions? Feeling financially comfortable, being widely respected, or doing something that inspires and excites you? There's no wrong answers here, but people who achieve at a high level almost always view not doing something impactful as a much bigger risk than financial or social failure. It's not that they don't care about those things. It's that not feeling like they are doing deeply meaningful work is far worse to them. Which brings us to the second point, vision. Because without a clear vision for the future, it's really hard to care more about inspiration than paying your rent, for instance, or the criticism of your entire peer group. So here was Elon's vision for SpaceX.
If you consider two futures, one where we are forever confined to Earth until eventually something terrible happens, or another future where we are out there on many planets, maybe even going beyond the solar system. I think that second version is incredibly exciting and inspiring.
Interestingly, this wasn't always the vision for SpaceX, even though that was Elon's end goal. He just wanted to inspire other people to pursue space travel by doing one smaller project on Mars that would spark their imaginations.
I came up with this little small philanthropic mission, which would be to send a small greenhouse to the surface of Mars. It's called the Mars Oasis. And there, upon landing, the seeds would be in dehydrated nutrient gel, hydrated upon landing, and you have this little greenhouse. And then the money shot would be, green plants against the red background.
Regardless of the specifics, a leader must be able to paint a picture of a desirable future. That's what puts the vision in visionary. And it's how they persist through the inevitable setbacks. And it's how they encourage other people in their organization to do the same. That's really what took us to the moon in the first place.
We shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
So if you want to achieve, you need a vision. But how do you get a vision if you...
All right.
Fantastic. All right.
All hopefully a little bit of inspiration for you all. But I'll just leave you with this final quote. And that's: the secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And Dr. Curnew, if you want to take it away from here.
Erica, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Problem.
I'm always inspired. So, can you put the next is it the yes. So we started off the seminar a little bit with my desk look like this morning. So what you're seeing on your far left is my breakfast. So so I had a different breakfast. So I'm trying to do something new. So I don't have bacon and eggs anymore. I have different grains and different different parts of that over here. Now, in the middle, there's a mouse. Why am I putting a mouse on there? Does anybody know? That happens to be contaminated. If you look at, we live in we worry about COVID-19, and basically COVID-19 is something that a couple weeks ago we said don't wear masks. So you see a surgical mask. A surgical mask is good to wear if you have one, because what happens is you're breathing out germs and air, and if it's contaminated, that might be an issue. In the background, there's an N95 mask that's more protective for healthcare providers. And so we know that different surfaces are contaminated. So one of the things that I've changed right now is that when I go home, I take off my shoes because the soles of the shoes if it's going to be contaminated, it might be on the virus there. I head into the shower. Um, I also realize that certain surfaces, so I don't use public washrooms. So just use your own bathroom. Keep yourself that 6 foot rule. I think is really important. That isolation. Again, the COVID virus needs a host, and basically, I'm trying not to touch my face. I'm washing my hands. It turns out that soap and water for 30 seconds is better than any sanitizer or alcohol because the virus will slip off and wash down the drain. So I'm being attentive to things like computer keyboards, my mouse, and yes, it would be nice if we all had masks, and I think that helps spread the infection to others as well, protecting ourselves to some degree. And that information is changing. The science is changing, and so we'll keep you up to date when it comes to that. But the mantle that an apple a day keeps the doctor away is a great idea. You have 2 cups here, so I have really important people in my lives, and you can see my kids. In that first mug is my coffee, and I drink lots of coffee, lots of tea. And that second mug is water, and in there is Jim and I doing the Ancaster Paris race. So we're trying to keep ourselves together in some way. We're also trying to exercise in a healthier way. I want you for the next 30 days is to think about how to change some habits. So today we concentrated on smoking. Now, it's okay not to make it, and not to be successful at things. It's not okay not to try your best and to help others. So if is that think about how do we regroup? How do we get better and always improve and not be afraid of Elon Musk can be unsuccessful. I'm unsuccessful many times throughout the day. And my clinic has changed. It used to have a very busy waiting room. Now we have an empty waiting room. But we're also starting to bring in individuals one-on-one to have cardiovascular testing, which is something I didn't think I'd be doing. Now we're doing it a couple days a week. In the background, you can see a toothbrush and some dental floss. So why am I showing you a toothbrush and dental floss? Simple reason is I have bad teeth and I don't want to go to the dentist. And one of the high risk situations will be dental offices because they're going to aerosolize secretions. So if you need to go to the dentist, dentists will see you on an emergency basis only. Um, I don't want aerosolized secretions coming from anybody. I don't want to contaminate anybody. I don't want to be contaminated. So I'm spending a lot more time brushing and flossing my teeth. So, and what the future holds, well, it looks like the first wave of COVID-19 is starting to peak and plateau. So I think we're in a good position. But we learned from the Spanish flu, there were multiple waves. And I think there's going to be ups and downs in all this right now. So I never thought on a Friday night I'd be spending time with everyone, and you are all an extended family and good friends. So my quality of life has gotten better because of all of you. I'm very proud of all my McMaster students. Who've done so much to help us all, and I thank Paul, Erica, and Winnie for tonight. I look on the board there. There's John Deacon, and then I see uh, Joanne and Philip, and I go on these bike rides and I spend time talking about these are older friends and colleagues that have really been very instrumental, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody. Now we're going to have our ups and downs in all this, and ways to move forward. So um, I'm trying to get 10,000 masks, and I'll tell you more about that story as time goes on. And I want to distribute to different people and to different places. I don't know if we'll be successful or not, but we're working at that. We're going to try new things. I'm really proud that I'm not afraid to fail. I failed very big at times, and I keep getting better. So today the subject was initially about how to make some change. It's hard, but it's also fun that exploration. So please, moving forward. Um, those 2 mugs there that were help made by some of my students, and we just made them one day, and they give good memories. So when I have my coffee or my water, which is the number one fluid, I want to thank Veronica for helping make those things, and they bring joy to my heart every day, and it brings joy to work with you all. Um, we'll have time for questions. So the messages is that we have a problem, but there are solutions, and a lot of people working on that. And the best way is to use science. And one of the things about science is relationships are important, working together. This webinar will be saved and show them to all your friends. And if you know someone who's a smoker, give them a box of Nicorette patches, 21 milligram patches. Just drop them off, and that would be helpful. If you need help, we're going to help you, and we're going to move forward. So, any questions out there, Paul, or comments from anybody?
Let's see. There were some comments in the YouTube chat. There's this one saying that I really like: "Motion is lotion for the heart and soul." So remember to, keep on striving for your best and keep on trying. And yeah, so setting a lifestyle or living a lifestyle where you set attainable goals is very important. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So when you're making all of these habits, it's really important that you are setting goals that are attainable, whether it's smoking or weight loss or a healthier diet. One of my favorite sayings is, a lot of small steps leads to a huge distance, anyways, right? So don't hesitate to take a lot of small steps, even if you find that it does work towards your goal, whether it's quitting smoking um, or uh, or weight loss or anything else. And there's a question in WebEx: Is there anyone that should not be using patches, Dr. Curnew?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the way I look at it is, if you don't really want to do anything about your smoking, one of the things is that I'm a very much of there's two parts of your brain. There's the science and there's the emotion. It depends what's working. The science says every time you smoke, over 5,000 of harmful chemicals are getting into your body. And the emotion part saying is, well, life is a challenge. I don't know how much time I have left, and it brings up joy. And if you feel that way, certainly the choice is yours. But I'm going to encourage you as much as you can is that you can do it. You can make some changes. And simply putting on a Nicorette patch doubles the chance of success. It's a difficult journey. We're going to have ups and downs. And the issue is that if you go on the patch and after 30 days you haven't reduced your tobacco by 25%, you should probably stop it. But give it a shot. So it's a much better choice than smoking. But this applies to any behavior too as well. Is that if we prescribe you a medication, try it, let your body get used to it. But if you think it's the wrong medications, don't stop on your own. Discuss it with the person who started that medication. In your journey to healthier you is that I weigh myself every day. I measure my blood pressure 3 times a week, 3 times. And I'm eating healthier than ever because one of the possibilities is that we may get infected with this virus. And if I get infected, I want to be in the best fighting shape possible. I know if people have heart disease, your risk is higher, diabetes is higher, hypertension is higher, age is higher, cancer is higher, overweight's higher, atrial fibrillation is higher, smoking is higher, lung disease is higher. But we can do something about that. We can make some changes. Sure, isolation is very important, and proper social isolation, you can't replace that. If you isolate yourself, you have to decide how much isolation and how much social getting out you need to do in your life, and you have to find that balance. And some of us say, I feel better just isolating myself, and that's fine. Myself is that getting out and trying to do something useful, coming to the office and maybe at the hospital, different places. I feel that I want to make a difference. I'm going to make a try, and I need to try to do that. So that's important to me. And also too is exercise is a very big part of my life, and I want to exercise safely, and I feel that I can actually go and bicycle in the middle of nowhere and see almost nobody and keep away from that. It's much safer for me to be on my bicycle than it is to be in a supermarket. And so we're learning to get better. And what I say today will change tomorrow. So what I'm saying is that I'm changing my behavior. When I come home, I don't wear the same shoes. I take off my shoes because the soles might be contaminated. I go straight into the shower. I'm spending a lot of times. I look at the last webinar. I think I touched my face many times. Today, I'm doing better on keeping my hands glued between my legs right now. I notice Paul's not touching his face as much as before, and we're all helping each other. So, and that Harvard study, wow, saying that quality relationships are important. They are important. To me, it's important to just to try hard and not be afraid to make mistakes. I make lots of mistakes. I'll tell you if I got about those masks, if that's a good choice or a bad choice at some point in time. But we're going to try going down fighting for all of us. And in times of crisis, you see the good and the bad of people. And I've seen a lot of good out there, and very proud of so many people. And I want to wish you health, happiness, 10 pounds weight reduction. For those who smoke, smoke less. For those who need to lose some weight, lose weight. But maintain your relationships. They're hard work. They're also very enjoyable. Do we have any other comments there? And Paul, why don't you tell us how people are connected? And one of the things that I learned is that we're getting a lot of people that look at these broadcasts, and the more the merrier. We're working on our books to get them out on the internet. So, Paul, how do we share this information with everybody?
Right. So before I do get to that, there's one more comment that I want to touch on from Dr. Deacon. Dr. Deacon actually recommends this book called Tiny Habits. Let's see, Tiny Habits: The Small Changes That Change Everything, by B.J. Fogg. That's B.J.F.O.G.G. So he seems to highly recommend that book as well for your habits and to work towards your goals. In terms of getting in touch, and all of this new online technology stuff is fairly new for this clinic and the webinars, but we're loving how they work so far. If you're in this WebEx, that means that you sort of figured your way to getting through and getting onto this platform. We are also hosting. So all this session is live and is live on YouTube right now. So if ever you're having a little bit of trouble getting into this WebEx, or if you want to tell any friends and family to join and they might not be as tech savvy as yourself in the webinar, you could tell them to go to YouTube and just in the search bar type in Dr. Curnew. So Fridays at 7 o'clock, when you go on Dr. Curnew's page, you just go to videos. You're gonna see what the screen looks like, and it's gonna show a live video. So you just have to click on that. Very simple. Just type in Dr. Curnew, go to videos, and it should be there. Maybe 2 or 3 clicks, and Erica can show you here as well. So highly recommend send this to anyone else you think might benefit from these sessions. It doesn't have to be this one. It could have been any in the past or any in the future. I am also going to prepare a little bit of a document that we can have on our website, which is drcurnew.com. So Erica's just showing here. You just type in Dr. Curnew, and you'll see right there the first result. Even there, it says live now. So all you'd have to do is click that. If you're interested in seeing,
Does it say live now? Where's that live button there?
there it says there.
There it is.
And
it's a younger version of me too. It's good.
yeah. And if you want to see what else we've had, you just go to videos there, and you can scroll through and see our past webinars. There they are, as well as some other ones that we've been uploading online. So you can send these to your family, friends, anyone else who might benefit. Dr. Curnew did mention some books as well. So we've been working on, or Dr. Curnew at least has been working on some books for 25 plus years. I was going to say we, but I realized I would have perhaps not even been born by then. But with that being said, we have that coming onto the website. I'm not sure if it's been updated yet, but if you just go to drcurnew.com, and there it is. Another nice young picture of the handsome Dr. Curnew.
Some days I'm shaving. Some days I'm wearing a beard. So I shave Monday morning for sure because that's when I go to the hospital, and I might have to wear an N95 mask, and you need to have a tight seal on that. So is that and the hospital's changed, and we still need to provide proper care to people, and are still, heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, atrial fibrillation, COPD. These are bigger killers at this stage. We can't ignore them. Um, and Joanne and Philip has done a nice video on how to cook in the morning time, so we're going to put that up shortly. There's a great link, a great video that on congestive heart failure that Monica and her team has put together, and it includes some why you might be short of breaths. It's a fantastic video. Steffi and her team has worked on an intermittent fasting video. So we have lots of information to share with you. We're moving more to online formats and lots of discussion. Want this to be very interactive. We are going to be calling all you around the time of your appointments that are scheduled, plus or minus 2 hours, I'll say, is that you have to understand is a doctor's office is confusing, lots of things going on, getting lots of emergencies. I had to send a person to the hospital the other day, and so that took an extra 2 hours, and there'll be some delays. So want to speak to you. Our team is reaching out to communicate. We want to be available. Jen has been working those phone lines and working, it seems like 24 hours a day. I'll work my 16 hours a day. I don't work quite as much as Elon Musk, but I'll come in second. I'll keep working hard, and so much to learn, and we'll share so much information. I learned so much about viruses. I'm learning about other disease processes, and I'm really pleased that the science is coming in and the humanity is coming in as well. So we need to work hard on this. Any questions or comments for anyone? John, thank you very much for that book that I started to read. I have to get back to reading about how to make those small changes one at a time. I only have about 500 books to read and about 7,000 emails to catch up on, and we'll keep working away. And I'm very proud of everybody for being here tonight and spending Friday nights. One of the things that some people told me, I can't go drinking at the bars anymore. I can't go to dinner anymore, but I can be healthier. So come join us for the happy hour on every Friday at 7 o'clock, and we'll keep going for, who knows, maybe for the next forever, maybe for 2 weeks. We'll keep going for as long as this goes on, and maybe even longer afterwards. And thank you for allowing us to enter your lives tonight and share some of those stories. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and you notice, John, is that the background's a little bit better compared to last time. I learned to work on that. I'm not touching my face as much as before. One thing is that I'm long-winded. I need to be a little bit shorter and concise, but maybe next time.
Thank you all for joining us.
Have a great night, everybody, and be safe.